What's going on, everybody? We're live. We look normal. There's nothing different about us today. There's nothing different at all. We all look exactly the same as we always have. And it's just Friday. There's no Halloween coming up or nothing. This is just what we chose. We're culturally appropriating today, okay? That's what's happening. This is what's going on. Welcome in, everybody. Make sure you can hear us, that you can see us okay. Thank you all very much for joining us for this special, very special Friday version of our community stream. Halloween weekend is upon us. Let's go ahead and introduce the panel. Mr. Hans, go ahead and give us a brief introduction. Who are you? Who are you?
Yeah, my name is Hans Nelson. I'm kind of an Elon nerd. I have a background in mechanical engineering. I've done quite a number of things. And yeah, I love hanging out, talking about Tesla, Elon Musk, Twitter, any of those kind of things.
Awesome. Anonymous, would you like to reveal your identity? Oh my goodness. Who could it be? I don't think so. I think he's going to keep it to himself. I hope he knows he's muted. I don't think he did.
For today's purposes, I will go by Elon, but that's spelled E-L-A-W-N.
Nice.
Thank you.
Elon. All right, Elon, we got you. Yashu, go ahead and give us a brief intro. Actually, let's well, I guess he's Elon. We'll keep him as Elon. Yashu, go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up, GG Gang? I apparently am invited to this channel to talk about Tesla today, or Twitter today.
Yes.
Freudian slip, but I'm super excited, and thanks for tuning in. And I love you guys' costumes. I wish I was creating early enough. Usually I wait until like the day of, or like a party or something, to like buy it an hour before. So a little bit behind so far.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And then Jared, go ahead and give us a brief intro.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jared. I've been following Elon, Tesla, SpaceX, and all the companies for nearly a decade now. Just a big super fan and happy to be here.
Awesome. All right, let's dig right in. So the big thing that happened this week, obviously, Twitter was finally finalized, and Elon, as of last night, is the CEO and owner of Twitter. We got announcements that a few folks left the company. Parag, the CFO, the CEO, the CFO of the company, and I believe general counsel and somebody else as well, at least from what we've heard so far. Maybe we'll just go around the panel and we'll hear y'all's thoughts on what's gone down so far, and we'll just turn it into a conversation. So I'll just have maybe Yashu, you can kick us off, and then we'll go around the horn.
Sure. General thoughts around the Twitter deal. First, glad it's over. Second, it makes sense. We were talking a couple of days ago, I think, Farzad, and we were saying how there's probably going to be a house cleaning and how Tesla team is probably going to take over. And lo and behold, there seems like there's like a little smaller group of head honcho Tesla engineers in the Twitter headquarters as we speak, probably debriefing on what steps to take, what actions to, what OKRs to set. So it's cool to see what's happening. I'm glad it's done, more so than anything else, as a Tesla enthusiast first and foremost, I guess. So investor as well. So glad it's done, and glad we can talk about how Twitter can better itself as a platform, because I think there's a lot of things to talk about there.
Sure. Jared?
Yeah, I actually got super excited. Yesterday and today, because just seeing at least the videos and pictures of Elon at Twitter HQ a couple days ago. I mean, Twitter's the first thing that Elon's been a big part of and a major leader in that's non-built by Elon. So the fact that, he was such a successful entrepreneur and is a successful entrepreneur, that he's able to divert his resources towards this thing that he deems important, it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Elon, what do you think? Not Elon, Elon. What are your thoughts?
I'm grateful that it's over. I'm grateful they did it a day early. That was nice. As of this morning, when I checked my Yahoo list of stocks, I could no longer get Twitter, so I knew that it was done. I hope that, because I think people will bitch about it, I hope he's careful about using Tesla assets on Twitter projects, because those are kind of two separate things. If he contracts, Tesla to do things, that's fine. But I don't want resources of Tesla to be kind of I'm going to say misappropriated, even though I don't mean it that strongly. I'm glad he apparently didn't have to sell stock, and he kept his word. That was a big plus for his integrity, because he didn't do it apparently. He must have been able to raise the additional capital, or there was an adjustment in the total price, based on the shares. So all in all, I think it's a nice ending. I think Gary Black thought it was an overhang, so we should be like up 10% today.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
Let's check.
So I have a question on that one, Elon. So how does sharing resources between Twitter and Tesla differ from sharing resources back and forth between SpaceX and Tesla, or the Boring Company and Tesla, for instance? That, we've heard that these types of things do happen in the background. And so just I'd love a little bit more color on how you see the differences between those things.
And before you answer that, Elon, if you want to give just a brief background so that folks have context.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer by trade, so I may not know anything, but that's my background. It may not be any different, but nobody's focused on the rocket business as much. Twitter obviously is a much more public issue, so it would be in essence using assets that should be used for Tesla on some other business. And I would expect that the people that they're going to use, the engineers that went over to Twitter yesterday, I assume those are not like dumb guys. I assume those are probably the smarter engineers they have. So those are probably more valuable assets. So it becomes a problem. You can account for it, you can charge for it, but those engineers should be working on Tesla projects, not on Twitter projects. That's kind of the bottom line. So it may be no different, but I think Twitter is a much more public project, and if it became like incessant, people would bitch.
Yeah, so from a legal standpoint and potentially even like a market standpoint, if how do you see engineering talent actually being hired by Twitter from Tesla, and people moving back and forth in like a more official capacity than just going and working on projects?
I don't think it's a black and white thing, to the extent he was taking advantage, that would be the issue. Are you taking advantage of Tesla for the benefit of Twitter, which is a private business, et cetera? Now, obviously we haven't gotten there. It may be, de minimis. It may be, it may be just a few engineers. It may not be a whole amount of time. We don't know, but it's an issue. And it's an issue whenever you use resources from one business and apply it to another business.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, Jared, go ahead. I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to mention how, you see a lot of negative sentiment from people who are focused on this Twitter deal and Elon running Twitter, and you just hope that that negative sentiment doesn't get shifted over towards Tesla in any way, as Tesla tries to hit like mass adoption and stuff like that.
So I guess my thing there is like, what if it's just a handful, right? What if it's just 5 or 10 folks? Because I think SpaceX and Tesla do that today. There is quite a bit of crossbreeding. So what if it's just kept to a very low amount over time, and it's nothing? So for example, if the customer or investor doesn't perceive any impact to Tesla's ability to execute, is it a non-issue, or is the practice itself shouldn't be done? Like, how do you think about that?
I think if it, like I said, if it's de minimis, if it's not like a material amount, then I don't think it's
Got it.
No harm, no foul. But I wanted to throw in one quick thing about the Twitter deal that we've never discussed, that I don't think I've ever heard anybody discuss. The reason why Elon had an interest in settling this dispute, as opposed to being deposed, which he wasn't, as opposed to going to trial. He's being sued by another investor in Delaware, claiming that his compensation package that he got, whatever, $50 billion compensation package, another investor is suing them in Delaware in front of that same judge. And that case is running behind the Twitter case. So he had a great interest in not going under oath in the deposition in the Twitter case, and not being in front of this judge and maybe impeaching himself or not looking credible in front of this judge when the lawsuit by the shareholder might have a much bigger direct impact on him than this Twitter deal, because it's a lot of money. If it was fraud, you'd get punitive damages. So I think he had a great incentive beyond closing the Twitter deal for not trying that case in front of this judge.
That's an interesting take. I just pulled up the report. This is from March 2nd. I'm trying to find. Let me see if I can find anything that's earlier. Maybe June 12th. Twitter. No, this is just a Twitter deal. Yeah. What? How did they end up in the same court? Was that by design, or is that just how it plays out?
I think because everybody was incorporated in Delaware, so Delaware would have jurisdiction.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think the fact that they finally moved on from this sort of lawsuit saga is obviously that major overhang that all of us have been sort of looking at. But looking at the like the stock price, I don't know. Like, are you guys really convinced that there is some sort of correlation between the stock price and Twitter actually getting done? So if we look at what we're at, so this thing closed yesterday, right? Officially, the rumors came out on Monday. Right, I think it was Monday around that time that, hey, they're finally reaching some sort of conclusive deal. That would have been the 24th, if I know my dates correctly. So I guess we do see quite a bit of a rise from that point. But if I look at the rest of the markets too, so if I pull up, say, the NASDAQ, if I go back to Monday, I feel like we have a very similar sort of price movement, right? Maybe Tesla's up a little bit more over versus the NASDAQ. I guess they're about the same. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts around that. Do we really think that this Twitter deal being done is positive for the stock, or do we feel like, this is just sort of hot air? I don't know. What do you think?
Go for it, Yashu.
Yeah, it was hot air. I mean, come on. Like Tesla, trailing 6 months, Tesla is down 23% in the trailing 6 months. I get it's an arbitrary point. We can adjust it and we can talk about that instead. But down 23%. You would expect a beta close-ish to 2. NASDAQ should be down, I don't know, let's say half of that. Well, NASDAQ's down more than half. NASDAQ's down 15%. So Tesla should be down in theory closer to 30%, whereas it's only down 23-ish% in the last 6 months. So I think it's a whole lot of nothing. But I think two things can be true here. One is that there was no effective Twitter overhang in the price action, let's say in the trailing 6 months. And then also simultaneously, it could be true that institutional investors did not like the general uncertainty of Elon selling, or they do not going through, or whatever else. So I think both of those things are probably true. I know it's people think they're mutually exclusive, but I think they could be true at the same time.
The one thing that I would say about Gary's perspective is that he is in a unique position as an institutional investor who is bullish on Tesla. There's not very many people like him. And so while the Twitter overhang may bother him as an institutional investor, there's not many other institutional investors who that bothers who are also already bullish on Tesla. And so I could definitely see the people that Gary has in mind when he's thinking about Wall Street's reaction to the Twitter overhang. Basically, they're not positive on the stock, period. And Twitter overhang or no Twitter overhang, like now the reason that they have to be not positive on Tesla is, oh, well, Elon's distracted. He's running Twitter. Like they're going to find a new reason. And so I don't see this catalyst psychologically maybe having as big of an effect on the market as Gary might think. And I love his perspective on the whole situation, but just kind of as I've digested what he's had to say, that's the main question that I've come away with is, are there really that many other PMs out there who the closing of the deal would actually have a significant positive effect on their outlook on the stock, and them not just move on to the next woe to be concerned about?
On that same sort of thread, if I pull up Gary's thing again here, so I'm curious to see, like, what are those threads, right? What are those things that could become a sort of like the new overhang going into this quarter and the next. So if we just read this sort of catalyst list that Gary himself has created on his, the same person that sort of was talking about the Twitter overhang, for those that are not familiar. Twitter catalyst, we have the overhang lifting in October, so theoretically that has already happened. We got EPS revisions for fourth quarter, so we have basically earnings going up, and analysts have to adjust their sort of outlook for the company accordingly. We got new gigafactories being announced theoretically here in the coming months. We got FSD beta wide release. We got the EV credit next quarter, really in Q1. We got the $10 billion buyback being finalized probably sometime early Q1. We got Cybertruck launching mid-2023. We got the 30,000 EV launching in theoretically 2024. But there's sort of this list of things that are coming down the pike that, you know, a lot of us have really talked about. But now that this Twitter thing is truly like lifted, the overhang, are we thinking maybe this is a more long-term, maybe it's not like an immediate thing. Maybe this is like a 6-month ordeal, that now that you don't have this quote unquote overhang on the stock for 6 months, now this thing is, anytime there's a positive catalyst, it's free to run. You know, maybe that's the thought process. That is not necessarily a over the next couple of days. It's over the next few months. So, sort of similar to when Alexandra posed the thing around the investment grade, right? When investment grade was announced, the stock really didn't do much, but you're sort of setting the stage as a catalyst allower, right? So that now that you have that variable in play, then the stock can sort of move from there. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know that the stock is going to change or run away anytime until the macro environment shifts, honestly. Because I think we're still at a place where everybody's walking on pins and needles as investors as to what's going on in the macro, but then also being exposed to like tech and what's happening to some other tech giants of like Facebook, you know, Meta and Amazon over the past week or so, these two. Both of them getting smacked so hard after we know we're in a tough economy. I would say Tesla's going to fall into the same thing, where investors aren't really going to put a bunch of weight into these tiny things that, you know, to us it might seem tiny and stuff like that, that are going to be substantial over the next few years until we start to see that macro materialize and shift forward.
Yeah,
I would. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go Hans. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That was you. Go for it.
Okay, I would agree more with you, Farzad, there if Tesla wasn't already outperforming the market. If Tesla was in line with expectations versus the NASDAQ, I would say, okay, maybe Tesla could be outperforming if it wasn't for Twitter, but Tesla's already outperforming what it should trade at versus the NASDAQ, that is. And by the way, like that's a great point, Jared, with the Amazon earnings last night and it getting absolutely shellacked, Facebook. It goes to show you that despite Tesla missing and everyone's calling it like the massive stress, that's like the huge stress test really that Tesla's been through in the last year and a half, call it like 3 years if you include COVID. I mean, Tesla's still like, we did not see the reaction, even with the Twitter overhang post earnings, that many bears were leading towards as a theory. Tesla was down 6, 7, 8%, let's say, on the day following earnings. I forget what it was. Amazon was down 15% or whatever. Facebook was down like closer to 20% after hours. Like these companies are mega cap companies as well. The price action that we're seeing with those mega caps post earnings is just disgusting. I don't remember the last time you really see you've seen that much of a market cap loss for specifically Amazon. Even like I think that was record breaking. And so if you look at kind of Tesla's earnings and what they're projecting for and the Twitter overhang that everyone talks about, you would have probably seen one of those puke reaction post earnings. Okay, well, Elon's open to sell now that the 10 Q's out. You didn't see that. You saw one red day and then the next day kind of reversed. So if that doesn't show you the strength in Tesla, at least relatively speaking to some of these mega caps, I don't know what does.
Yeah,
so I just
sorry, real quick. I just have to laugh because those who have been following the stock for long enough, they're just like, in what world, you know, when we take a step back, is Tesla the non-volatile stock out of this list? Yeah. It's just very comical to think of.
That's true.
Good.
Yeah, and I think so my very stupid internet guy, don't listen to this advice thought is that, you know, it's probably going to take not just one, like these are all catalysts and it's not about any one of them. Like yes, as we see them, maybe they do help us to outperform a little bit and be a little bit more stable, kind of on a one-by-one basis. But what's powerful potentially is the preponderance of all of them together in the next 6 months to a year. And that's kind of building up that base of good news, good news, good news, good news that, it may take a while. We may not see the stock really move on any one of them in the short term, but then you get far enough down the road, and after you've had enough of them where the stock hasn't moved, then you get that bounce back, and people are like, you know what, I'm just tired of, basically any of the big tech advertising companies who are not Apple are going to continue to get shellacked by Apple, for the foreseeable future. And that's going to be a tough pill for the market to swallow, for those companies to swallow. And, I think Facebook particularly, but even to a certain extent, Google they're going to struggle a little bit more than the market is used to based on Apple's changes to privacy policy. And so there could be at some point, and like I said, I don't expect it to be in the near future, that it might take a few months that finally we see Tesla's relative outperformance on a fundamentals basis get reflected in the stock, and then more people start to move in the growth sector over to higher allocations in Tesla.
So I obviously could be Gary Black, so I'm going to state that in that way. We're in a bear market rally in a down market. That's kind of what we are. That's what everybody would say. And so we can have ups, but ultimately until kind of the trend changes, we're in a down market. Usually, and we thought we were in a recession, but the GDP numbers yesterday kind of will change that characterization. And we know kind of generally 6 to 9 months before the recession, the market will bottom. So since we're not in a recession, we probably aren't necessarily at the bottom either, and we may dump some more. I'm annoyed that when Apple produces what I would say is very mediocre numbers with not great guidance, they go up 5% and Tesla still drops. I don't think their numbers were super, but they're the bank for everybody else. That's the place people dump their money for safety. I can't wait for the time when Tesla is the place where people dump their money for safety. And in as to the impact, the overhang, underhang, hangover of Twitter, the way Gary Black sees it, is there were a lot of institutions, hedge funds that went long on Twitter and short on Tesla. And so I don't think they've modified that yet. I don't think, because what they're going to do is they're going to go long on Tesla and they're going to be out of Twitter. And this just happened, and they're not going to act before the deal is closed. So I still believe over the next months, we will see institutional money flowing back towards Tesla, and that'll be impacted on the price. But until the macro kind of settles down, we could have ups and downs, but it'll be tough to get a long-term trend up. Gary Black says.
Obviously it's Gary Black. I had a chart up a little earlier where we're talking about Tesla's performance in respects to other stocks and indices. So this is a year-to-date chart. Tesla, if you're not familiar with candlestick patterns, Tesla is a candlestick pattern, which is basically these like green and red candle-looking things, but just think of it as a line. And this is sort of, where Tesla's at today is right around here. The purple line is Amazon. The light blue line is the NASDAQ, and the red line is Facebook. So just to kind of put within context some of the things we were talking about, how Tesla has been performing versus other stocks and indices. Again, none of this is investment advice. My goodness, like look at us. You're going to take investment advice from like people that look like us? Come on. But I think it's very encouraging to see. So let me go ahead and add Apple actually, because I'm curious to see now what I looked at this like a few months ago. I haven't looked at it recently. So Apple here clearly. So if we look at the year-to-date chart, Apple has performed significantly better than the rest of the peers I put up here. But then in comparison to say like a Facebook, Tesla year to date, even through this incredibly beat up market, has significantly outperformed a company like Facebook. It's kind of in line with the call it the Nasdaq, a little bit less than the Nasdaq year to date, and about in line with Amazon and underperforming Apple. But if we go 2 years, I'm curious to see what that looks like. We got the candlestick. Look at that. So actually, this is if we go 2020, start of 2020, right there. Then you can see sort of Tesla's performance versus its peers is like completely just bonkers. It's sort of like this year to date, this short term sort of time frame where Tesla is starting to behave a little bit closer to, call it an Amazon, Nasdaq type sort of performance, whereas a company like Meta is just getting completely destroyed. I am surprised to see Apple has been performing quite a bit better. Actually, I shouldn't be surprised because, like you said, the flight to safety is sort of that what Apple's known for. So I don't know if you guys have any comments around this. Go ahead.
Also don't forget with Apple, that Apple buys back a significant amount of shares every single month. I think they had $24 billion of free cash flow, or just cash flow last or this quarter earnings report, and they bought back $25 billion worth of stock. So, by the way, just do 6 months for a second, because I think year to date is a little bit wonky with Tesla because of the first trading day of the year. Tesla gapped up like 10% or something. So what does that show us? So Tesla's down last 6 months 23%, is that?
Yeah, roughly 23%. Then we got Amazon down 27%. You got the Nasdaq down 11%. Apple flat, down basically flat, and then Meta is down 43%.
Yeah.
So I was going to say 23% drop in this market is not bad. I mean,
especially for growth.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to repeat it because eventually I might run out of money if it goes up 23% down. But this has got to be like, historically, really, this is a historically bad market. 20 years from now, we're going to look back and realize how bad this market was. And if we're only down 20, 25%, that is a strong showing, in my opinion.
I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more here. So one of the questions was, can you add Google and Netflix? And I'm more than happy to do so, just so we can do a comparison. So now we should have all FANG, right? We got Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Alphabet, Netflix, right? That's FANG right there, I believe. Why did I pick the same color? So who's this, Netflix?
That's Netflix, up 56% in the last 6 months. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess 6 months, kind of arbitrary. Yeah. But no, you're right, Anonymous. The relative strength still, I mean, you talk about stress tests. Factories were shut down in Shanghai, factory closures for upgrades, record high interest rates. You talk about just everything in terms of force majeures our way in the last 2 or 3 years. And like Farzad showed, in the long run, it's doing great. But of course, even year to date, is doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's right in line with the indices. That's what I kind of like. If I put like these sort of other comparisons in play here. So I went back 1 year. So what's interesting is Netflix year to date. What just happened here? I had it. 6 months. Netflix last 6 months, it's up 57%. But if I go year to date, it's actually down 50%.
Yeah.
So
its high was about 600, and it got hammered in 2 earnings back to back, and it basically cut in half or more than half.
Yeah. Fun fact.
5-year chart.
You're like, fun fact, your favorite stock can fall 50% an infinite amount of times, and it can hit zero. So, I mean, it is
numbers.
Funny. Right. I mean, but 226 sitting on Tesla right now. We look at, I mean, the biggest thing is the next 12 months, right? And you talk about Farzad for a second, you talk about or I think Hans, I think you were just talking about how people are going to say Elon's distracted now with Twitter. And I saw some comments about that in the chat as well. I think that's the funniest narrative. Like, this guy that runs 4 or 5 different multi-billion-dollar companies, is now going to be distracted with Twitter. I mean, maybe in the short term, you can make that argument that he's going to devote more resources to it. But I think that's a great thing to talk about in the short term, because I think that's what, like, kind of the next headline FUD piece is going to be everywhere, is Elon devoting zero time to Tesla, SpaceX, and focusing all on this like Twitter toy that he bought is kind of like the narrative that I think the media is going to shift on soon enough.
What's the likelihood of that happening? Do you think that's quite likely? Does something have to happen for that to start becoming like to take hold? How do you think about that?
The narrative, like,
Yeah, the narrative.
oh, I think I'm already seeing it in general with a lot of, with a lot of Twitter Q. But I think if the stock doesn't perform well, I think it's going to be an easy like, hey, look, Tesla's down another 10-15% since Elon's bought Twitter or whatever. Check it out. Of course, Elon's devoting no resources to his old companies. He's leaving everyone behind. He's, sold stock when he had to at the peak, and now he's forgotten about. Like, I think these are going to be lazy, easy narratives to point out that are going to happen in the next little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation, Yashu. If you just think back to the book Thinking Fast and Slow, it's such a great book. And basically, for those who are not familiar with it, the way that our minds work is we have basically two information processing systems. One that operates extremely rapidly, and it takes very little energy, and then one that operates slowly and it takes a lot of energy. And so the way that we operate is we try and make sense of things as quickly and with as little energy as possible. And so a lot of times we won't think through something in a logical fashion because, we don't have time for that. Like, literally ain't nobody got time for that. And so, yeah, that when we see these like, you can almost predict what the FUD pieces are going to be. It's like, what is the story that requires the fewest number of pieces that makes semi-coherent sense that you can tie everything together with, that everyone is aware of? And that's going to be what the FUD piece is, because it appeals to that laziness in our brain. Like, I want to make sense of this and I don't want to work to make sense of it. And so, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay, done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say it's also I agree very much with Yashu said. It's the catch-all. So if there's no obvious explanation and it's a subjective conclusion, it's always that he doesn't have enough time. And the best part about it for the person who's making the claim, it's not disprovable because it's all subjective. So, you could always say that if he would have spent more time, that wouldn't have happened. You could always say that, but there's no way of disproving it. So I certainly, and that was kind of my point as the difference between Apple and Tesla. Apple got a positive, and everybody has a positive feel about Apple. And Tesla, we do, but half the world doesn't. So there is a negative, at least a negative audience as much as there is a positive audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the interesting thing there is as soon as you see, it's so funny you mentioned that because that's literally there's going to be a news article that comes out, like say, store in Florida has really long wait times for service, and then literally it's going to be service center in Florida ruined because of Elon's lack of attention to Tesla, right? I mean, it's so easy. It's so easy to turn this into a thing, but again, it's like I agree. It's like it's a very lame, like not very good attempt to try and put something on Tesla and the company. So contrast that with the fact that I kind of want to I think this sort of ties to the ad stuff, and Yashu, that's one of the main reasons why we brought you on. So Yashu has a lot of experiences with ads, but sort of like in the environment where Elon now in the next 2 to 3 years, call it, is going to have this quote unquote cash cow with Tesla that's going to be generating a gigantic amount of cash, which should attract a lot of very quote unquote powerful entities towards his side because they know they can make money with him. And then you have this Twitter landscape where he's looking to innovate on the way that ads are being done, it looks like. So if I pull up Elon's quick message, and I'm sure a lot of people in the chat have already seen this, but in case you haven't, I'll just pull it up real quick. I won't read through it fully, but just so you're aware of what's going on here. He sort of essentially created a statement. From what I've seen, this is really the first official statement that has come out of Twitter theoretically as Elon at the helm. And it was who was the first person that was, or the group that was getting the attention was advertisers. And all of it was based around, hey, we want to create this sort of platform where we want to make advertising as relevant as possible. So what's the point I'm trying to make here? Now you're going to have two forces that Elon has on his side that are going to be theoretically very, very good to people that are willing to work with him from a monetary perspective. And so when you have that happening in contrast with these FUD pieces, like how much weight are the FUD pieces really going to have when this dude's making everybody a lot of money? Right. So that's going to, I think, going to become the new dynamic for the next 2 years. And I'm curious to see if the tone's going to shift out there in the media landscape because of how theoretically powerful that's going to be. You're taking the guy who's one of the best engineers, sort of problem solvers in the world, really, one could argue for a really long time, if not, put him in the group of ever. Now he's going to figure out how to solve advertising. Like, that seems like a gigantic thing that would enable a lot of people to make a lot of money, right? So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about that. And then I also want to sort of start talking about ads and stuff like that too on Twitter, because that's one thing there. What do you guys think about that? Is that, am I nuts? Do I think that, am I being too optimistic that there's going to be a pretty giant shift because the people that drive narratives are the ones that like to make money, and now you're going to have a force there that's going to make them a lot of money? Okay, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion that this is a solvable problem. It is Elon's superpower, though. Like, figuring out an economic forcing function to actually drive the entire market towards electrification, that was a huge lift. And he knew, I mean, if you go back and read Tim Urban's Wait But Why articles, like, he laid out that this was Elon's plan all along. Is like, we can't transition the world to sustainable energy without creating an economic forcing function. And so the challenge is, how do you actually align people's incentives monetarily to where they will do what is in the best interest of humanity? I would love to see what is in the best interest of humanity actually being possible to align incentives that way. The current advertising model has done the exact opposite of that. It's driven polarization, clickbait, and basically a very high noise to signal ratio media landscape. Now that does create an opportunity for Elon that basically, I don't think there's hardly anyone who will defend the current landscape of media as like, this is the pinnacle of human achievement. We are living high on the hog with the way that Twitter is, CNN, NBC, Fox, and that's just here in the United States. It's a mess everywhere. So there is an opportunity. Now the question is, can he go 3 for 3? Can he do SpaceX, Tesla, and transform Twitter? Hopefully the answer to that question is yes. But like he said in the thing, failure is a very real possibility here. And we don't have the proof positive that we can do something differently in advertising than we have done in the past. And it's going to take a lot of innovation on the product side. You have to create a user experience that is so compelling and adds so much value to every Twitter subscriber's life that they feel like it is a more than even trade for them to give away whatever data is necessary to create amazing advertising products. And there's lots of opportunity there, but like I said, it's not a done deal. It's not something that we should just immediately, basically, reason by analogy. Yes, he's done it in the past. Oh, he's going to do it again in the future. This is its own first principles problem that will require first principles solutions, and the answer in the future may not be the same as it's been in the past. And I certainly hope that it's true. I think if anyone can do it, he can. And I'm super excited to watch what is their strategy, what are the specific things that they do to try and solve this problem. And I'm extremely hopeful because, like I said, we all know that the current system is broken and we need something different.
Yeah, I really think.
Okay.
Sorry. I think this goes back to Twitter overhang, and I'm thinking more in my mind that Twitter overhang for me isn't done for the next 3 months, because I think with Elon and new management coming into Twitter, they have this opportunity where for their customers as well as advertisers, they can re-engineer the products to be able to show the stark difference between Elon Twitter and the previous Twitter. And just like customers shopping for vehicles are going to notice how better a Tesla is versus a Mercedes or a Chevy or something like that. There's a clear difference in one being significantly better than the other, and the advertisers as well as users are going to see this difference, and then it's going to be beneficial, at the end of the first 3 months after financials are reported.
I could be Ross Gerber, so I will be Ross Gerber for now. And I was involved in the Twitter deal, the privatization of the deal, and I had some of my clients involved too. And what I learned of the intention of what Elon's intention was one, the new Twitter company is called X, which I didn't hear otherwise. The number one goal in the new X company is to get rid of the bots and all that nonsense. Two, that there'll be some kind of subscription model, because Elon believes that advertising leads to the corruption of the content, that it influences the content too much. And if you can have at least some subscription services, then you won't be influenced, that the content won't be regulated by the advertisers. And unfortunately, my brain is too small to remember point 3.
I like it. Well, if you remember, just feel free to interrupt me. I think there's a couple of things here. I think number one is, I think it's easy to confound the problems of traditional media with buying essentially the narrative off of, let's say, TV ads or something, and then driving narratives through websites or whatever. And with the new age media that we talk about with Facebook, Instagram advertising, TikTok advertising, Google advertising, these platforms don't really run that way mostly. I mean, yes, we'll have bigger advertisers on the space that can dictate and have censorship pull, but for the most part, with Elon, I don't think he's thinking this myopic. I mean, we're talking about little, like what's the big problem here? With SpaceX is a clear mission, right? Interplanetary humanity. With Tesla there's a big mission: accelerate sustainable energy and transportation. It's like, what is the big mission here? I think it's free speech. So in that respect, I get that we're talking about advertising, and I want to talk about advertising, and I have a lot of points here written to talk about advertising. But with subscription, that would make more sense, right? Anonymous, because if you have subscription, then all of a sudden you're not beholden to advertisers. You can do whatever the heck you want, as long as consumers want to pay. But I don't think consumers want to pay for Twitter. And chat, let me know if I'm wrong or if I'm right. Like, if you had to start paying $5 or $10 a month for Twitter, I would bet the user pool would shrink dramatically. I would say the vast majority of people on Twitter today would not want to pay for using Twitter. So the question is, who's going to pay? Who's going to pay? At the end of the day, someone has to pay for these real costs that you have as a real company. So, and also, we talk about the problem of advertising today. I think it's important to realize, like, as a consumer, it's very different, the problem that we talk about versus as a vendor, as an advertiser that I would talk about, let's say. As it currently stands, advertising is a pretty awesome space to be in online. Facebook ads suck. Instagram ads are okay. TikTok ads are killing it. Google ads do really well. Like, as an advertiser, it's a blue ocean right now. As an advertiser, there, like, ROI is incredible on TikTok and Google ads. Like, these platforms have massive ROI. So if we talk about, there's a problem today in advertising and consumers don't want to be clickbaited or this, as an advertiser, you could really be hard-nosed about this and say, I don't care. I'm getting a positive ROI. I'm happy. Like, there's no problem here on my end. I'm happy to continue to pay to continue to pay for this sort of stuff. So it makes it hard to measure a little bit what the end goal should be. If it's just an ROI positive platform, because at a first principles level, you can make the argument, the best product wins. You talk about, oh, Elon can make this amazing platform that's super, that has great UI, great UX. As a consumer, I love it. But at the end of the day, as an advertiser, if there's no ROI on a platform, I'm not going there, and I'm telling everyone to step away. Case in point with Reddit. Reddit's as a garbage advertising platform in the media buying space. No one looks at Reddit and goes, oh, great, let's spend millions of dollars on Reddit. But as a Reddit user, I love Reddit, right? So it's like, on one level, you look at the platform, you're like, oh, Reddit's a great platform for consumers. I love it. On the advertising side, there's no ROI there really. And no one talks about Reddit as an advertising platform. So it's like, how do you marry those two? Google is one of those few examples where Google search is essentially a monopoly and it's the best search out there. Whatever, I'm sure DuckDuckGo users will come at me in the chat, but it's the best platform out there, and it's like 70% of Google's revenue, right? So it's like, how do you marry these two ideas together is like the hard part of this, I think.
What if you pay people for their attention?
Well, that is advertising, unless you're referring to something else.
No, like actually paying them. So like,
oh, right.
You know, like, so there was somebody, because that's kind of where my head, and you make such good points. You make such good points. Hans, go ahead and sort of speak your mind here.
Well, yeah, that's, I remember when I first saw The Social Dilemma, that was one of my immediate takeaways, is that part of, you know, one potential solution is for someone to create a decentralized platform where instead of the third-party intermediate being the only one who is raking in the money by connecting the advertiser and the advertised, that the advertiser would actually pay the advertisee directly at least a portion of that, and that would create a little bit more competition, a little bit more of a true marketplace, that you could see some of this stuff get mitigated in that way. So, you know, there is potential there, but then we also have to remember that paying for Twitter, it's not a binary thing. It's not, yes, I'm going to pay for Twitter. No, I'm not going to pay for Twitter. There's a continuum. You know, YouTube has YouTube Premium, and then they have just YouTube. And so some stuff can be locked behind a paywall. Some stuff may not be, or there could be specific functions. You know, maybe I'm not willing to pay for the right to speak freely on your platform, but maybe I am willing to pay for some other service that potentially I pay for somewhere else. And then Twitter just does it better. And so there's a lot of things that can be done here to create revenue. And there's a lot more gray area and room to play for Elon and the Twitter team than, you know, we've seen from a lot of the current players.
Yeah, the thing that really piques my interest about sort of marrying the two things is like, I think paying the consumer on the platform is such a different idea, but it seems like the right one. Because as a user, like, how do you incentivize? It's like you're almost hitting so many different, you're killing so many birds with stones, and I shouldn't be killing birds, but that's what we're gonna do with this thing, okay? With this metaphor. The function of saying, okay, we're gonna give you hyper-targeted ads, and what we're going to ask you to do, is to allow us to ingest as much data as humanly possible that you have on your phone, on your digital self, on your avatar. And in exchange for that data, we're going to give you a slice. Like, literally, we're going to pay you for that data. And you're going to get a hyper-targeted experience, but the only way we can verify that you're a real person is if we get you verified. And that sort of becomes the way for Twitter to kill the bots, because now you're having an incentive for people to get verified, and you offer them such an incredible experience that they're going to get paid for in exchange for these advertisers to be able to really target their stuff to them. Now, that opens up a host of different things, but like, I feel like that's the sort of solution that's required to really kill the bots, by literally ensuring everybody's real, by putting them through a very rigorous program. And then once they're verified as real, you can start paying them for the data, so you can create very hyper-targeted ads for that person. And if you don't want to do that, don't. That's fine. Just have, like you said, Hans, like, have the ad-free experience. Pay $10 a month, whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you have these different sort of experiences on the platform. And then like imagine, if Twitter has what 230 million users, let's call 100 million of them actually active. That's probably being generous. 30 million. We'll call 30 million active users, right? If 5% of those people, if it's so 1% is what 300,000, 1.5 million people are willing to give the data, like basically all their data to advertisers to craft their hyper targeted ads, and they pay them for those people. I bet you they can use that same data for the entire user base, because the amount of intelligence you're going to get from that data is going to be mind blowing. So whatever investment you're putting into the person to pay for their ad, you're going to get back and then some. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, a lot of this ties in with the dream of crypto or Web3. Like, as a person, who owns your data? Like, are you sovereign over the data that you create? And that's one of the big driving questions behind a lot of projects. Execution may be lacking, and the structure may not be there yet, but there's definitely an open playing field, an opportunity here for Twitter to be kind of a Twitter or a Web 2.5 solution to a lot of those type problems, where they can basically take the stance that, hey, Twitter user, we actually believe philosophically that you own your data. And so we're going to give you a dashboard where you can say who gets to have what parts of your data, who doesn't, who gets to see what, how do they get to interact with it. And then you can receive services or financial you could receive a whole number of things. You could be compensated just in the value of the content that you receive. You can be compensated monetarily. You could be compensated by, as far as the ads are actually concerned, something that you didn't know that existed in the world that you really, really needed, and you didn't know where it was. You knew you needed something, you didn't know where it was, but Twitter knew where it was, and they were able to provide that to you because they were able to read your needs. That is also valuable. And so that's, we don't have an existing incumbent player who has this philosophical stance. A lot of tech companies have founding teams that had a high value on free speech that over time that's kind of been eroded. And so, I don't know. I'm hopeful that Elon can take that stance not only on free speech, but also on digital sovereignty and create a winning product there. But it does seem like there's a lot of market forces that erode that value over time. And maybe it's just the fact that no one has had the backbone to stand up and say, you know what? No, like this isn't just an important value, like this is the value. And I'm willing to make yes, no decisions. Are you allowed to do this on my platform based on it? And so, no, I'm going to stand up and tell this company or whoever, no, you cannot make that censorship type decision here.
Anonymous likes to speculate, so I'll speculate. I've always felt that that somehow Square and Twitter were going to end up in some kind of partnership, and maybe related to the use of the blockchain technology, maybe related to crypto or somehow. But that would be another way of for Twitter to generate income, and would make the issue of ad revenue, et cetera, less important. So I'm thinking, like we've heard about it being a multifaceted, we've heard talk about the multifaceted app. Well, maybe if so much income can be generated on all these side businesses, the advertisement and the money generated from just the commentary is unnecessary.
Sorry, Josh.
I'm gonna sound like an old man here, but look, I love Web3, I love crypto, I love the blockchain, I love everything about it. Been in it since 2017. I just don't think this is the platform, and I think if we think that consumers are all of a sudden going to be willing to share more info with a platform in the name of free speech, I think we might be a little bit too excitable there. Consumers today hate the fact that they have to share data. Just look at iOS 14 and how that pretty much killed Facebook. And all of a sudden, and by the way, on Google, you can already do a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. If you don't want to share data, you can turn it off. By the way, I encourage everyone, go on your Google. There's I think Google, just Google my account or something, my account data, and there's a list of all the attributes that Google has on you based on your Gmail, based on your calendar, based on your walking, based on your driving, based on what Google reviews you left, what places you visited. It knows, like, a newly engaged, or restaurant frequenter, or that, like, they have all of these data points on you, and that's because they own these properties that you love to use. Obviously they own Google Maps, Google Search, YouTube, Gmail, calendar. They own all of this. This is how they have the data on you. And remember, the data in and of itself is not valuable. It's the machine learning and the AI specifically that Google has. And I know it's gonna take a box in a lot of Tesla people here. It's the AI and the black box that they don't show you behind the advertising platform that makes Google a killer today in the advertising space. They just launched this new machine learning AI campaign type called Performance Max. It's essentially taking all the inventory that exists on Google's platforms today, display, video, search, and taking all of the lower end aspects that advertisers, like, for example, display. I hate display campaigns. For the most part, they're garbage. It's just a waste of my money. Taking that and trying to make use of it by creating a campaign that doesn't let you exclude. It doesn't let you choose where you want to place stuff. It just tells you, give me all the assets of your business, any videos you have, any products you have, any phone numbers you have. Give me all of that info. Don't even target anyone. Okay. Don't even tell me you want to target men or women under 45. Like, don't tell me any of that. Leave that to me. And we're going to run a black box scenario off of this. And you essentially run this campaign. It's like you have no idea what's happening on the back end. And then you can have performance metrics on top of it. So the reason why I say that is because the black box is what makes Google special. You can argue that's quite shady, but at the end of the day, like, this is why advertising platforms work in perpetuity. You can fool advertisers for 6 months, but if there's no ROI, they're going to leave. And so the question is, how does how does Elon create a platform where not only people want to give up their data, but people continually use it in an ecosystem like Google that continues to gather more data, and consumers are excited for it. And the problem that I have with incentivizing users all of a sudden saying, hey, you're going to make 5 cents for every X amount of data that you share with us, is that all of a sudden now you're incentivizing them to look at ads that they have no business looking at for the sake of getting paid. And as an advertiser, that just sounds like a subsidy for a crappy product. Why should I have to pay, as an advertiser, consumers to see my ads on a platform that I give no shits about? So it's about, at the end of the day, how do you do that? And it kind of sounds like FSD per mile. A lot of people throw out, if Tesla should charge FSD per mile. I think that's a stupid idea. Why would you want to disincentivize people from using FSD as much as possible? All you do by charging per mile is now all of a sudden you make it where people are like, I don't know if I want to go more than 25 miles per day. Or, so you have to be very careful with the incentives that you create and how open and honest you can be, because at the end of the day, ROI is what drives it on the vendor side. And that's really all that matters, because consumers can have all these opinions, but let's face it, people hate sharing data, but they're still using Google today.
Excellent points. Thank you for that. I think people in the chat also are dude, Yashu, you're on fucking fire, bro. You're so good. Seriously.
So I have some questions related to that if you're about to move on to that. If not, go ahead.
No, yeah, I had a question, but go ahead. Go for it.
Okay, so my question for Yashu is really, and I've been thinking about this since yesterday in part of our discussion, but so where do you see the opportunity in creating the platform, as far as, for Elon to get to the point that he's talked about wanting to get to, where they are the most respected advertising platform, and you have really high signal to noise ratio in the ads that are delivered to you? Is it mostly accomplished by basically curating the ads and just really heavily up-ranking things that create conversions and down-ranking things that people don't engage with? Or is that also involving really helping advertisers to create more effective ads? Because, you could imagine a scenario where really what should be most effective is people who have created the best products, and now your ad is just a way to get the products in front of the people. And then there's a whole other camp of people where they're creating a mediocre product and they need advertising a lot in order to convince someone to buy it, and then they buy it as meh. And so how do you, as the platform, basically create the highest signal to noise, both for the advertiser, but also for the consumer?
And then before you do that, Yasha, if you don't mind, just maybe offer a little bit of background as to why your insight would be good here.
Yeah, I'm a media buyer. I've been a media buyer for many years. I've helped people, business owners mostly, run advertising for a long time, whether it's directly or indirectly. And the best advertising platforms usually have the best data on the users. If I can target people that are, for example, like in market audiences on Google is like a prime example of this. It's specifically, you can select in market audience for people that are looking to buy a car in the next 60 days, 90 days. Like Google knows when you're ready to buy a car in the next couple of months, and you can target specifically those folks. So if you have like a mortgage, or if you have like a loan company, hey, are you looking to buy a car in the next 2 months? You should check out our loan company, and this is why. Okay, well, you caught them at the right time. So it's the data really that makes it the best. But on the flip side of that is really, why does Google work? Because it has the best product. It has the best content creators. And Elon's kind of hinted at this a little bit, is if you can get the best content creators on your platform, case in point, Farzad's channel here, why is it on YouTube? It's the best platform out there, right? And so if you can get the best content creators on your platform, you're incentivizing consumers to use your platform. And if you're incentivizing more consumers to use your platform, the more they'll want to use it. The more they'll want to use it, the more data that you'll get on it. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy there to an extent with data. So the question is, first, how do you attract more people to use your product more often? Number one. And then I think the second part of that is kind of, how do you, and if that's the case, then the ROI will come. Because why does TikTok work despite it being such a new green platform? Because everyone uses TikTok, and TikTok has, by the way, you should not be on TikTok. I deleted it off my phone months and months ago. Don't, like, the amount of info that they collect is just scary. Okay. I just won't say more than that, because someone's going to come after me with TikTok. People, it's like a cult out there with TikTok. But at the end of the day, the best platforms win because they have the best content out there. And then when we talk about, and Nick brings up a great point in the chat here, and I've been thinking about this a lot with the news wiring service. Why do we have Bloomberg wiring services in 2022? Why is that a thing where institutional investors get this edge on us because they pay $5,000 a month for this platform to give them all this news on, milliseconds before it comes on Twitter? Why not bring those type of wire services on Twitter that you can subscribe to via Twitter for $20, $30, $50, $100 a month as an option for Bloomberg, for the regular retail investor or trader that is probably more than happy to pay for that sort of stuff, and bring it off of like a native platform, like a software on your computer, and bring it onto Twitter, and promise like lightning fast speed for delivery to your phone with notifications. Like I think we should focus more on the enterprise level of this. News companies that want to that embed screenshots or actually embed links of Twitter posts on their Reuters article, on their Bloomberg articles. Why not charge them? And I think Elon's hinted at this. Like, those are, I think, the enterprise level solutions are low hanging fruit, because these companies know that Twitter is the place to be for news. So I think there's a lot of ways that you can monetize outside of just consumers. And I'll let someone else talk here. I'm rambling too much.
That's very interesting there. Jared, did you have any takes? I know you got to jump out here, but did you want to offer something?
No, I mean, just my general sentiment is like, the product is just going to be so radically different when we look back a year from now. I think, if we were to like make an analogy with Tesla, if Elon made a bunch of money and acquired GM in 2008, like obviously the world would be very different. I think something like that might happen with Twitter. So really optimistic and looking forward to that future. But I appreciate all the points, Yashu.
Yeah, it's great insight. It really is. Anybody else have any thoughts on what Yashu just shared with us? Thanks, Jared. Thank you, brother. So like for me, it's like the world of advertising just seems like such an old thing, and you sort of like alluded to this, Yashu, when you said I might sound like an old man. I think, everything you make makes so much good sense, but given with the existing framework of where we are today with advertising, Like the thing, and sort of Jared alluded to this a little bit, is like, are we so sure that this is going to be the sort of dynamic that's going to continue with Twitter? Is it an unbreakable dynamic? Is it as real as, is it as true as humans will always need oxygen? Humans will always have to drink water. Humans
Yes.
will always have to sleep. So that's
Yes.
sort of where you're coming from. Yeah.
For sure. People will always buy things and people will always sell things, and there always will be a broker in between. Back in the days, it was, merchants walking the streets. Today, it's on the internet, and for that, you need platforms.
Isn't there less need for advertising though, because the Tesla model for is direct sale, right? So if everything becomes more direct sale, less intermediary, less broker, isn't there less of a requirement to have advertising dollars spent?
Tesla is very much an exception with not advertising. Like this almost never happens. And also direct to consumer companies are one of the biggest media buyers out there. Like look at mattress companies that are direct to consumer today, one of the biggest advertisers on any platform today. So I think direct consumer, all that really does is get rid of wholesalers and distributors and retailers in brick and mortar. But that, if anything, it accelerates more advertising online, I think.
Well, and you've seen a lot of those mattress stores even go back towards more traditional business models because their direct-to-consumer models basically broke as soon as the cost of customer acquisition started rising, as the advertising platform started to charge higher fees. And so, yeah, I think that Yashu's right on that. For you, the only way that direct-to-consumer really works is if you have just got an incredibly compelling product. And so if your product is not incredibly compelling, your ability to get organic customer acquisition cost basically goes to zero.
Got it, Elon.
I was saying, Yashu, you must be looking into my house because I bought at least 2 mattresses that way, direct to consumer. You're snooping.
He's got all your data.
I got all your data.
Yeah, exactly. So what is one of the, so you kind of talked about one of the innovations in ad targeting. It would be more towards the, and again, I'm not familiar with this world, so I'm depending on you, Yashu, to sort of hold my hand through this. But one of the innovations is, instead of targeting the consumer, you target the business. So you target sort of the example you used was a news site publishing Twitter tweets, and Twitter gets compensated because of why? I'm trying to understand the dynamic better.
So I think we're talking about, like, for example, Bloomberg, right? Bloomberg has a terminal.
Sure.
Pay,
Let me reframe it. I'm trying to figure out, knowing that Elon innovates everything he touches, what is one of the biggest innovation spaces in advertising that's not being done today that Twitter can now do?
I mean, I honestly, I don't know. I would say machine learning AI with Google is like the frontier of advertising today, and what Google does really awesome. I don't see what advantage Twitter has. Twitter doesn't have great user data. It has a bunch of memes from random people that don't want to share any info on them. So like as like a vendor, yeah. And so I don't know. Like, I would say it's machine learning and AI, but I don't think Twitter has any advantage to that. Tesla may have an advantage to that with their dojo and their platform there, but I'm not sure.
So, do you guys recall when there was some rumors about Tesla and Google partnerships? What if it really was an Elon and Google partnership, but it was a Twitter and Google partnership and not a Tesla and Google partnership? You know, maybe like there's some truth to that rumor, but it was misplaced because it was really a Twitter play. Maybe that's why they're talking. Is that, like, how do you get those two to play together? Why?
I was going to say that might be where we started the conversation about using Tesla resources for non-Tesla purposes. It would be interesting if there was a technology that Google had and Elon elected to use it on Twitter as opposed to Tesla. That would be an interesting position. That would create that kind of conflict.
Yeah, I mean, it could be very easy. Like you can monetize with Google Ads today very easy. Like you can just become an AdSense publisher via Google. today, and you can embed ads on your blog, on your microblog, whatever it is, your site, and a bunch of blogs already do it. I'd imagine, of course, if Twitter was going to do it, there would be more of an integration process there. Actually, I don't think that's a terrible idea. If Google Ads all of a sudden, or if Twitter inventory opened up for Google advertisers, I think that's a great partnership to have, because Google is on the frontier of advertising, and it would make a lot of sense. I don't think it's Elon's way, because it's not first principles thinking enough. Maybe it'd just be too much of a third party slap on a solution, and maybe he doesn't like that. But I would be very much on board with that, to be honest.
Do you think that opening up Twitter to actually be indexable by Google would be something that they'd be interested enough in to create a partnership like that?
Like SEO wise, like if I search for something, tweets start showing up on
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah, like you can't really search Twitter at all using Google. You have to use their inbuilt tool,
which is not good. And Twitter search is not good.
Yeah, Twitter search isn't great.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think they're all known. I think they're all no follow rel links at the moment. I don't know. I think the problem with that is like how many like random crap tweets that you see have keywords in them that like very much so like should not be showing up on Google. Like someone's like random opinion about like Nancy Pelosi showing up for like, you know, the top search of like someone searching for her net worth or something. Like it gets a little bit messy with people's opinions. So, but I guess that's what a news site is after all. It's someone's opinion. So
when you were talking about like the Bloomberg terminal, isn't it ultimately that somebody's benefiting, some insider is benefiting from that, and ultimately paying somebody to protect that position? Up until recently, obviously, and I don't know what the practicalities are, but there's an issue in Congress, United States, about buying stock, et cetera. So, I would think that it's possible that one of these, Bloomberg has a relationship with some senator and they provide information, and the senator protects them from being, attacked. And because I've always thought, as a general rule, that all those things are insider. That to me, it seems like it's all inside information, because there's a class of people that have access to information that the rest of the public does not. And that's certainly an advantage, and it should not be permitted. Anonymous says.
Yeah, I think there's a general degree of truth there. I think the thing with the Bloomberg wire is the speed of access to information, not so much the information itself. Like when information is about to hit, Bloomberg, from whatever methods and sources that they have, are like the first to report it. And then there's a delay between the intermediaries actually posting on public sites and articles and stuff like that. So it's like if you're an institutional trader or investor and you need like the fastest access to information, you don't care paying $5,000 a month, $10,000, $20,000 a month for these wire services, because those couple of milliseconds give you a slight edge on the market. So, but I think a lot of that sort of stuff, because I mean, all of us kind of use Twitter to that degree already today. Even people in the chat listening, if they have Twitter, what's the reason you're on Twitter? It's maybe 10, 20, 30% of that reason is because you want to be the first to know about information as it breaks. Twitter has been and will continue to be one of the best news sources out there in real time. You can't beat it with CTV, CBC, BBC. Like these sites suck for speed. The reason why we love Twitter, right, is because how fast we get information. It's so discernible to us. So I think if Elon folk doubles down on that aspect, and like you'll get like institutional level access to all the types of information that you want at a fraction of the price it costs institutions, and you could partner with like third parties there for that sort of stuff. I think that could be an easy way that you can have like inbuilt subscriptions, and I think subscription is the way to go. Well, when you talk about software, if you can have some sort of subscription based user base, I mean, that would be massive for the valuation.
That's such an interesting take, is like democratizing the access that institutions have to the people so they can just be as powerful. And that feels like it's on point with Elon's sort of overall mission, is like just have everybody be as powerful as possible. That's what free speech intends to do. That's what sort of the other things that he's talked about try to do. I mean, theoretically, having a Tesla with solar batteries and with solar and batteries theoretically takes you completely off the grid, and you can kind of do your own thing with Starlink, especially. So you're kind of become your own. So it's like a lot of like thematics around that, like just make the individual as powerful as possible. That makes sense. I'm just curious to see how they would execute against that. I don't think the engineering and solution aspect of it is going to be the bottleneck. It's going to be the how useful is the product or service. But they have a track record of showing that they can make very useful, like super useful products and services. Sorry, my dogs are insane.
I think they like your idea.
I think they do. They're agreeing.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot good with Twitter here. We all love Twitter. I think we're all on it too much. And I see Nick here posting comments around micro fees for tweets. I just think I think again, you get into this problem where you're decentivizing people to tweet now. Like, think of your Twitter account. Would you want to tweet more or less if you had to pay for it? If the answer is less, then it's probably not in the spirit of the platform. So that's the problem I have with monetizing that way. But I think, look, at the end of the day, it can't get worse. Twitter is one of the worst advertising platforms out there. I think I spent like $50 on Twitter advertising one time, and I probably it took like 2 minutes to spend. Like, the problem with these platforms is not only do they give you zero ROI, they spend your money within like 10 minutes. Pinterest is the same way. Like, the good advertising platforms like Google, if you set a budget of $500 a day on advertising, they will spend the first 10 or $20 very slowly to get a gauge of what type of consumer is actually engaging with your ad, and then with machine learning get better as it continues to spend your budget. The problem with these platforms is, like, and you pretty much know it, within the hour, whatever budget you set through, it's just going to blow through because it looks at it kind of like an open credit card. So Twitter advertising sucked today. Twitter advertisers today probably see very little ROI, if any. So it can't get worse than it is today. That's at least the good news for Twitter.
Very interesting stuff. Yeah, this conversation is going to be one that I want to continue having for the foreseeable future, because I think it really opens up the realm. Like, my ideal sort of end game for this whole thing, obviously the free speech aspect is huge, but I think Twitter can also become a place for entrepreneurs that have products and services that are extremely valuable, now have not just an affordable way of marketing themselves, but they also have an extremely effective way of marketing themselves. Whereas I think, and something that's not a black box necessarily, like, for example, if I wanted to go on, when we had a small business, even with this merch stuff. So I started a merch line. I'll plug it at the end of the video. I promise everybody. I'm trying to kind of make it into its own thing, into a life of its own, and I'm utilizing sort of the experience I gained from having a small business back in the day. We had an escape room, and I had to figure out how to use Google Ads, AdSense, Facebook ads, all that stuff to we're here, we're paying, $20,000 a month to keep this thing going. Like, I need you here, you know. So you invest in that marketing, but it was a huge learning curve, and it was kind of like, okay, I have to learn about keywords, I have to learn about how SEO works, I have to learn about what kind of audience I'm trying to target. What if Twitter can now become this sort of place where the entrepreneur, the person that's offering a service or a product, now has not just the learning curve for that becomes much lessened, but because of the tool sets that Elon and team are able to create, and the power behind that sort of hyper targeted experience where the ad now becomes a content per se, then you have this boom in like entrepreneurs that before maybe they had a really tough time marketing themselves. Now they sort of gets unlocked because of that innovation and ads. So that's kind of where my head goes in the next like 3 to 5 years. Like, could we see, however that's done, if it's how you describe it, Yashu, which is most likely to be the case because you obviously know what you're talking about here. If it's some other method, so be it. But what is the real thing that gets unlocked here is the individual. The individual now has additional power to be able to reach the status of an institution that would have these insane marketing budgets. Now it's a little bit more proportional. It's not dominated by a few companies. Now everybody has the same level of power. I don't know.
Do you think that's mutually exclusive with promoting Tesla on Twitter? Everything that you've said about the individual's rights, etc. Do you think that's contradicts with a private company promoting the interests of Tesla, which all of us, of course, would like that to occur. But I don't know what you guys think about that.
That's interesting. So you're saying like what like dynamic between that and then Elon can just flip a switch and now Twitter becomes Tesla's marketing arm? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes.
Okay. We'll see. I think if they come out and they start doing that and it becomes a legitimate, like if there are ads for Teslas on Twitter, then I'm gonna be like, okay, this kind of like I'm curious how do I play within this realm? Like, am I being drowned out by this thing? But if it's just people creating content without necessarily leveraging the advertising aspect of it, and it's just creating content around Tesla, okay, it's just really popular, right? It is what it is. So I think it depends on how it gets executed. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts, but that's sort of how I think about it.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think Elon just needs to be really careful about how that would play out, because it's going to have very sensitive optics.
It's a very interesting point you're making, because it goes like it's no different than when he said I'm not going to sell any Tesla stock, and then this whole last 2 months we're like, oh shit, is he going to like go back on his word? Like, is there going to be some trust erosion there? Yeah, Yasha, not sure if you had any thoughts there.
What with advertising and Tesla specifically, I think it's the best like Tesla. The reason why Tesla doesn't need advertising is because I mean, they got lucky with the way that they have their product. It's so easy to share. A car, everyone wants to do a review. Everyone wants to make little clips about. It's just a shareable product, and it's world class. It's not the case though with 99.99% of businesses out there. They need to spend money to get and there's like this notion I want to dispel even with like the average consumer out there that like advertising is just like this deceptive way to get people to buy stuff that they otherwise wouldn't buy. And maybe there's a facet of truth to that, but folks, advertising, the reason why advertising works, and I love advertising not because I'm an advertiser, but because it allows me to open up my pool of products and services that I might not have thought about. And sometimes I'll buy stuff off of ads that I'll be like, thank God this was delivered to me, because it's like the perfect solution for what I was looking for my business at this time, or for my, bike at this time. Like there'll be products and services out there like, oh, this is like the perfect fit. How they got that information, I don't know, but it's perfect. And so I think there's like this notion of like, oh, ads equals bad all the time. And I think it doesn't have to be that case. Good advertising platforms will have positive ROI and they'll generally be happy. I mean, when's the last time you did a Google search? Yeah, you probably like, or actually, this is a better example. There's so many spam ads on YouTube with like Elon on stage nowadays with like him. It's like basically like a deep fake of Elon giving a speech about like this Bitcoin opportunity. Right?
Yeah.
Like that sort of stuff needs to be filtered out in a better way. Yeah. But there's also probably very little chance that that's ROI positive either. Right? So good ads will be ROI positive for the most part. And yes, you'll need Twitter is kind of a gong show already. Like, I'm not sure if you guys know, like there's like dark ends of Twitter that you can go on. Like every now and then, like you'll click on something and it'll be like, holy crap, how is this allowed on this platform?
Yeah.
And so there's some cleaning up to be done there as well, because brand safety is a big part of, especially like the big advertisers, Disney, like, these companies, they will specifically on Google's platform have sections where they can select brand safety protocols. So if you don't want your brand to ever show up at anything related to profanity, nudity, nothing like that, you have a strict measure to control that. And I think Twitter needs to implement stuff like that before it's going to attract kind of these really big advertisers, I think.
Yeah. Great points. It's going to be fascinating to watch. It's going to be really fascinating to watch how this whole thing plays out. I'm very, very interested. Let's go ahead and hit the super chat here, and then we'll move on to the last topic. Thank you, Yashu. Dude, Yashu, have you thought about starting a channel that's around this topic, like a YouTube channel? I think you would give a lot of value.
Around advertising?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I love advertising.
Maybe on Twitter.
About it. Yeah, I mean, Twitter, I don't think is the best platform for media buyers, but yeah, I love. If anyone loves talking about advertising, feel free to DM me, and or if anyone wants to talk about ads at all, I'm always down to talk about ads.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question before we move on?
Yes, please.
Demand is now exceeds supply, so advertising is really not important. But I'm speculating. we're headed into a recession, so demand probably will decline because it'll decline probably for everything. And there may come a time where supply exceeds demand. So do you think that Tesla would not advertise even when supply exceeded demand?
So are you asking that if, like, will Tesla need to advertise at some point? Like, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think
would they be open to that, or are they just not open to advertising, period?
I think Elon has made the statement before where I don't think he's anti-ad, but he wants to make it into like art. If I remember correctly, it's like it needs to be like great advertising. It needs to be like super super cool, and it inspires you to buy the product or be part of the service. That's what I heard. So I don't think they're anti-ad. It's just like they don't need to advertise because it's just not like they literally just raised prices in Europe yesterday. You know, it's not a problem, and it's not going to be for a long, long time. I don't even with the recession. A lot of incentives are going to be aligned to push Tesla cars, I think, more than anything because they're electric. So I don't see them sort of switching gears to advertising. But if they do need to advertise, my gut tells me is that they will have very good ads that will actually inspire people to sort of buy the product. That's my guess. I don't know if that
I
makes
did
sense.
just want to like double click on Ben's comment real quick. As
Sure.
far as like, he is a very
pull it
small
up.
minority of people that not many people are willing to pay for email. Not many people are willing to pay to cut the cord so that they don't have to see ads. And for those who don't want to do that, I think they should have that option. But you know, it's hard to run a whole business on such a small minority of people.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that point.
You just price it to the point where if the majority of people took that option, you don't care because the average revenue per customer off of an ad would be less than that. And back to the demand and supply point, I think if Tesla lowered the price by even 1,000, I think it would have like way more of an effect than spending 1,000 per vehicle or something on advertising. To my recollection as well, I don't think the board's approved advertising as an expensible M&A line. Because I think 2 annual general meetings ago, there was a vote for Tesla starting to spend advertising dollar, and it was shut down by the board. Not sure that matters. Not sure it's a board decision, but at least that's where the board was at.
Just a quickie. A lot of experts, so-called, I've heard it. They think that 3 million cars is kind of like a mark that is a demand impediment. That once you hit 3 million, it becomes tougher to raise your numbers. So that's the only reason I was asking.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Mace Wan.
McEwen.
Yeah. English is not my first language. Thank you very much for the $4 super sticker. And then Mimi actually makes a great comment here. That's why I love live streams, no ads. That's because I'm not pushing them. I do have the option. YouTube gives me the option to put like ads in the middle of live streams, like just randomly come up, but I don't do it because it breaks the flow. So, but you very well could if you wanted to. But I don't recommend it.
Please buy Coca-Cola.
Please buy Coca-Cola. Brought to you by Pfizer. Okay. Yeah, great discussion around ads and Twitter. I think, again, like this, I'm just so fascinated to see how this plays out. Really, really fascinated to see how this plays out. Any last thoughts? Sorry,
I
go
just
ahead.
want to, put props out there. A lot of people waffled. A lot of people went back and forth. Said, oh, Elon wants to buy it. Oh, Elon doesn't want to buy it. Oh, Elon wants to buy it. Elon doesn't want to buy it. And Farzad always stayed true. Elon's going to buy Twitter. And he did.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I appreciate that, Hans.
Pharaoh was right.
Yes. That's why I'm wearing this today. Everybody bow down to the prophet. I'm just kidding. Obviously.
You should wear that come Tuesday too. Just like November 1st, they'll have it on.
Oh, sure. Actually, I should wear it on freaking Halloween. October 31st. Why aren't I doing that? Because I'm, in my head, honestly, I'm like, oh, Halloween's on a weekend. It's Sunday. And then literally today, I'm like, oh, shit, it's Monday. Well, I already said I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do it anyway. Plus, I don't live stream on Monday, and I figured this would be, a nice surprise for everybody. But maybe I'll do it twice. Who knows?
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts on Twitter before we move on to the last topic? Twitter ads.
Last thing on Twitter, I'll just say is not that I've said too much already, but look,
No, please.
I think there's a lot of good here that can happen with Twitter's platform. Despite it sucking so much, objectively today, we are all using it for many hours a week, maybe many hours in a day, depending on who we are. And despite all of that, we love it. And so if you look at this platform in 5 or 10 years, what's going to be massively different about it is the big question. The monetization, we're not investors. We don't really care about that aspect of it. We just want, as consumers, selfishly, we just care about the user experience. How can Twitter get better from a user experience level? I think there's a lot of good here to look forward to. And of course, with anything that Elon touches, chances are it's going to turn into gold. So I'm excited to see where it goes to.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I 100% on board with that. Last topic. Here we go. Martin Viecha, the head of investor relations. We're going to switch over to Tesla for the last bit. I'm sure everybody in the comment section is also excited about Tesla. Thank you all. By the way, thank you everybody for joining the stream. Give yourselves a round of applause, everybody. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. Always great to have you guys on. Always good to have y'all on. I'm from Texas. What am I doing? Martin Viecha, the head of investor relations for Tesla. He tweeted this yesterday at 2:50 p.m. my time central. I find this highly non-consensual. By the way, I had to look up this word. I didn't know what I thought he wrote non-consequential, but it was actually non-consensual. And for those that don't know what that means, it means not agreed to by one or more of the people involved. So I learned a new word yesterday. Thank you, Martin. I find this highly non-consensual theory fascinating. What if ICE sales, internal combustion engine, gas car sales, collapse well before EV, electric vehicle capacity, grows to a level of, say, 90 million per year vehicles? A period in which there are not enough EVs to go around, but it doesn't make any sense to buy an ICE anymore. What do you think? And then he linked to this a very infamous Valley of Death chart that those that follow Tesla know exactly what we're talking about. And those charts assume that this level of BEV supply, the supply of ICE EVs, is essentially irrelevant to this analysis. So what this basically says is like, hey, there's going to be a time period here at some point where the amount of people that want to buy an EV versus the amount of EVs that companies are going to be able to make, there's going to be a giant gap. And the gas cars that would have filled that gap are not being bought because people are waiting to buy an EV, and that's what creates this valley of death. What I found fascinating, absolutely 100% fascinating, is that the head of investor relations pointed to this, and I think this is the first time that I can recall that really anybody at Tesla has sort of directly pointed to this phenomenon happen. They were always talking about, Tesla's goal is this, 20 million cars per year, everyone's shifting over to EVs. But now this is the first time I've seen somebody from Tesla say, and everybody else is kind of screwed because this is going to be kind of a problem and there's going to be a giant gap that forms. I view this as a signal, and I'm obviously super curious to hear what you guys think about this tweet and everybody in the comment section too. I see this as a signal that Tesla is essentially confirming that this is playing out, and that for the next, call it, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years or so, we're going to see an overall decline in supply of vehicles, which is going to put a giant strain on folks that are looking to buy a new EV or the used car market, which Jared, I think, wanted to talk about, but he had to jump off. So what are your thoughts on this? I find this graph to be very, very fascinating. This tweet, I think, is I just find it so interesting that somebody from Tesla actually highlighted it. Thoughts?
I thought the timing of COVID, COVID started. It was about a time where EVs were starting to rise. It destroyed the supply chain. So all these companies that were going to be farther along were delayed in their progress, except for Tesla, which was able to continue on to build factories and move forward. Now we move to a time where and there's a bunch, how many startup EV companies there are? There's, probably hundreds of them, but they're operating now without any profit in these amazingly difficult economic times for a startup. And I can only imagine out of, if there's hundreds of startups, 95% of those startups are going to go belly up. They're either going to be acquired or merge, whatever, which is going to further delay the production of vehicles during that period of time. And during the same period of time, Tesla moves on. I assume we're going to get an announcement of a new factory or two, and they're just moving forward, accumulating cash to do whatever they need to do. So I think the kind of the natural events of the world has kind of enhanced that to the benefit of Tesla.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a direct response to earlier you mentioned there's a lot of people who pontificate, oh, after 3 million cars, there's no demand, or that's a wall, and we're going to have to do new strategies after that. And, what got you here won't get you there is something that is traditionally true. But basically, in my view, this is Martin saying, demand problem? What demand problem? We're literally going to have pricing power for the foreseeable future, not only for our new cars, but also for our used cars. And not only that, in the meantime, actually, never mind. You were right about there being a demand problem. We're literally killing demand for the rest of the entire auto industry, and all those companies are going to die. And I don't understand Toyota's okay, let's reboot. Oh, we realize that our EV strategy is not going to work again. Let's reboot it for the third time in the last 15 months. Okay, you still lack the will to do what is necessary to go all in, and you're going to fail. It's just, if you go back and read The Innovator's Dilemma, I know that Clay Christensen doesn't think that you can have disruptive innovation from the top down, but pretty much everything else in that book, the reason that these companies are going to fail to do what is necessary to transition to the new technology is because they're listening to all their old customers. They're relying on their wisdom that they have accumulated over years. They have all this sunk cost, and they're not immune to the sunk cost fallacy. And they just can't wrap their heads around all of the things that need to be done differently in order to survive. And then when you look at Tesla and how differently they have approached literally every single problem in making a car company that's more than just a car company, but even if you just isolate the car company part, they have done everything differently than legacy auto. There's no, and we talk about these points all the time. They own the charging infrastructure because no one else was going to build it for them. They do service in-house. They are so vertically integrated, like all of these things. It's they have had to attack problems completely differently, and they're the only company structurally set up to be able to navigate this transition. And so other people who this transition is coming on as a surprise, they just don't have what it takes. They haven't prepared properly, and they're going to be dinosaurs. And so, the only question is, it's going to be interesting to see, based on government intervention, how it plays out differently for different legacy automakers. But they're all going to be facing the same difficulties.
The interesting part, and I think I replied to that tweet with my analogy to it, but the interesting part or I guess the scary part of this is this: if we know that other than Tesla, no one will be able to play this game of EVs, they can just jerry rig the rules in their favor and all of a sudden shift the transition if they want it at the government level. Farzad has my tweet up, but my tweet was back in the days, the Motorola Razr. Everyone loved that flip phone, right? It was one of the best flip phones back in the day. And I was like, this is like transitioning from the Motorola from that Razr to an iPhone. But I didn't have enough money back then as a kid, so I had to prolong my Razr usage for a couple extra years. It's the same valley of death that we're talking about. And so I'm actually scared to a degree when I look at the valley of death, because they can rig the rules in their favor. Today, as we talk, a lot of governments are saying, look, we're going net zero emissions by 2035, or we're doing all this green stuff. Well, come 2035, if there's no production of EVs, who's to say they just don't flip the switch and be like, look, this was never feasible. Let's just extend it another 20 years or something. So the problem is the only real way to have sustainable transit or have a real transition is for it to be consumer driven and also have production to match it. Because if you don't have production to match it, consumers can beg all they want, but government can pretty much have interventions the same way that they're having today. So I think the issue here is, and everyone should be on the same page here, Tesla investor or not, we should want these companies to succeed in their production of EVs, because what made Apple so awesome was not Apple by itself. If Apple was the only smartphone company and the only monopoly of smartphones in the world, they would not be where they are today. It's Samsung. It's the competition that they had back and forth with these big conglomerates that pushed each other, that they stole engineers from, that they stole trade crafts from, that they sued each other over that rounded corner of the iPhone in like 2013. Like, these things is the competition. It's the battle that we all should agree Tesla needs more of. I love Tesla today. I think Elon is a great leader for where they're going to. But look, folks, in the next 15 years, if Tesla doesn't get a legit competitor in production volume at scale, I'm going to be more scared than today when they don't have competition, because we need that push from the bottom. And I get it. Everyone's going to say Elon is always going to have fire under every employee's belly. But look, that's only sustainable for so long. As long once you're a mega cap company, once you have the path to production, that's one problem. But the issue is, how do you keep evolving from that point? And I get it. Today we talk about robotaxis, we talk about FSD, we talk about energy. I get it. I'm on board with it. But we need more competition for the whole market to be more sustainable.
Couldn't agree more. Beautifully said. Somebody turn that into a short, please, because that was so well put. I think the imagery that comes to mind is like, if Tesla is this good without a competitor nipping at its butt, imagine how much better it would be with a competitor.
Yeah, that's true.
It would be nuts. It would be nuts. This is a Tesla with a self-made fire. It's Tesla against global warming. Imagine if they had, or climate change, or whatever you want to call it. I think Hans is going to come back soon here. I look so much bigger now. Everybody does. It's against global warming, but now you have, or against climate change and sort of becoming a sustainable civilization. And then on top of that, then add, oh, and by the way, there are people out there that are trying to dethrone you from that type of a mission. It turns, the dynamic shifts completely. It becomes quite insane, and it's just, I agree with you so much. Like, the thing that also scares me is, if the valley of death happens, and if we have a number of companies that do go under because they literally haven't had the foresight to try and prepare for this thing, assuming that government doesn't step in and save every single one of them, a certain percentage of them will go to the wayside. And some of them could be big. Some of them could be GM, Ford, Volkswagen, Toyota, Honda, Mazda, Mercedes, BMW, right? There's all these like giant players that are now potentially could go under. And think about the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that are not going to be displaced. And you don't have the industry on the other side that's willing to take the people on, because they don't have the capacity to do so. So then you have these folks like sort of floating in sort of the what's that place between living and dying? No man's land, right? Purgatory, just kind of hanging out there. And it's, I don't know. That's what I'm most scared about. It's the instability. When people talk depression and recession with this thing, like it isn't like Fed. It isn't like whatever whatever these other factors are. It's recession or depression because there are industries falling apart, and you don't have an industry on the other side that's willing or capable to take on the workers that are going to get displaced. That's how you really have a big recession, a big depression. You have a lack of, the economy is not big enough. You've destroyed one side, you don't have the other side available to take it. In my opinion, that's what happens, and the fact, again, like, you have somebody at the leading EV company that's saying, hey, what do you guys think about this graph that we've never highlighted before, but it's probably going to become true? Okay, like, are we trying to raise some awareness here for people to step up, like you said? I don't know, man. It is scary. It is scary. I do fully predict that there will be competitors in the next 5 years. I think in the next 5 years there'll be one player that will 100% be deemed like a true competitor by the folks that study Tesla the way we do. You know, I don't think that exists yet. Honestly, BYD to me might be the closest from a price competitive standpoint and sort of like the scale, because it does seem like they are building those cars quite quickly. They don't have the profits. Like they barely make any money, but that's okay. Samsung doesn't make a lot of money. You know, Samsung makes a fraction of what Apple does, but Samsung's a huge player in the cell phone market and whatever other markets. You know, we very well could have a very similar thing play out here too.
And don't forget how important the EV transition is to the Chinese government and how the Chinese government is enmeshed in those large companies. And so if it's important to the Chinese governments, as long as, you know, they're not losing too much money, then they can help make that happen.
I was going to say is two things. One, I think we'll know that the EV revolution is set once the oil companies get into the EV business. I think that's a natural movement, that they will not want to lose their money, and it's a natural progression. I think Lucid, even though I think the you know, there's issues with Lucid, but that's Saudi owned, and maybe that's the wave of the future. Because I think if the oil companies got involved, that would be a complete flip to the, you know, really an impetus in progressing the industry. The other thing I wanted to say, and I don't think I've heard anybody else say this, but Farzad, you are extremely, you know, you don't brag, and I think you do a tremendous job moderating. Just to let you know, like a band leader, you do a great job, and you do a great job pulling up the information. And
Thank you.
really, really appreciated, and it provides clarity to what we're talking about. So thank you.
Thank you so much, dude. That's very nice. That's very kind. I think you're being too nice, but I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. What other thoughts? Any other thoughts around that sort of string we're pulling on here?
I think BYD makes sense, but again, I think a lot of their profits come from government subsidies. Outside of that, they would not be profitable. Also, I think, remember, they also make gas cars. People like to think they just make EVs. Like, folks, they're making gas cars. They call them NEV or NEVs, I think, in China, and like they include hybrids as well. Like, let's not like why are we forgetting this when we're talking about BYD? It's like everyone's assuming they just make EVs. Tesla's the only pure EV play at scale, remotely close to it. So yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, do I think Ford will succeed? Probably not. GM, probably not. These guys have too much baggage. You know, when your whole job is predicated on not understanding something, why would you understand it all of a sudden? So that's the problem I have. But look, I think it's still exciting times ahead. Look, if Tesla wasn't where it's at, I'd be more worried. But at the end of the day, like, Tesla can pick up a lot of the slack for now. Tesla can also outsource a lot of their drivetrain battery stuff eventually if it comes to it. And Tesla, let's say Tesla was hitting this point where it's like, look, we can sell 10 plus million, or we can outsource and we can have 3 other companies buy it off of us, and we can make close to 70% of the profits, but they can do all the work of servicing, everything like that. Maybe that's the scale that they go through. So there's a lot of things to look at here. If robotaxis come out, none of this matters, right? Like, if robotaxis come out, then we're going to be talking about, should Tesla even continue to sell consumer cars rather than just deploy networks out? So there's so many different tangents we can go through, but I mean, it is exciting times as a Tesla investor, to say the least.
Agreed. 100%.
Kind of interesting that Ford shit canned their kind of autonomous driving. They decided that's it. That's all, folks.
Yeah.
So many anti-Tesla people were so pro on the Argo AI, and like, you look at all the receipts of everyone saying how it's like the world-class leading robo-taxi platform out there and network, and then it's literally like they just shut it down. So it is pretty funny. Yeah, you definitely hate seeing it, but it is funny to see the receipts.
Yeah. The receipts. I love it. It's facts. Oh man, we're getting some comments here in the comments section. Looks like Twitter is letting go of more folks today. A couple hundred, it looks like. I'm trying to pull up a sort of news article that can cover that, but I'm having a
I'll
tough
tag
time
you.
doing that.
I'll tag you on
Okay.
it.
Oh, perfect.
On Twitter. For
Yeah,
it was
here real
Sawyer.
quick. Oh, it was Sawyer. Oh, I can pull him up. Let's see what Sawyer's got to say. Any parting thoughts here on? Oh, here we go. Departing Twitter employees say layoffs have started. Okay. Bummer.
Yeah, and like folks, like this sucks. This like I the last thing I want to see is people cheering this on in the comments and being like, these guys suck. All like everyone that goes to work, hopefully, I like to believe tries their best every single day. We don't need to be cheering on layoffs. Been part of them, have laid off people. It's never easy to go through this sort of stuff. And remember, these are just people that at the end of the day, like came to work this morning and now don't have a job. So let's be respectful. Not that I saw anyone not being respectful, but I think that let's just keep that in mind when we look at this sort of news coming out.
100%. Do you guys mind if I play this real quick? It's about 2 minutes long. I'm curious to see if you guys don't mind if you could mute on your end, and then we'll take a listen here.
I don't hear it.
No. Oh, did I? Hold on. Maybe I didn't share this properly. Hang on a second. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Sorry, guys. Sorry, y'all.
I mean, Britney happened. Michelle Obama wouldn't have happened. Elon Musk Twitter. I don't Elon know, Musk right? This used to be a town square. You know, Obama in 2008 wouldn't have happened without
my
like
director,
an Elon Musk on Twitter. You need free speech is when a public company, you know, a public owned stock, not like one guy owning a company, you know. But I mean, I even own a Tesla, man. Like, I'm a big fan of like clean energy, climate change, even free speech too. But yeah, my director is software engineer.
Yeah, it's I mean, it sucks to see, right? I mean, the fact that and I almost feel bad playing it because I'm like, when is the last time somebody's laid off and then you got cameras in your face? Like that kind of sucks. So
Enron.
Yep.
Enron, facts. Yeah. So it kind of like puts a lot of like a big spotlight on just how much attention this is getting. The fact that, he's an engineer that just walked out of a social media company and they got people interviewing him that, hey, how come you're one of the first ones that lost their jobs. That sucks. So I honestly, I wish I wouldn't have played that. So, bummer. I don't know if you guys have any reactions on that, but I feel like shit for having played that.
Don't feel bad. I'm getting some feedback here.
No, you're good. Oh, sorry. There we go. You should be good.
Don't feel bad. I mean, look, that's going to be aired on all the wires and the news places for better or for worse. Look, I think we don't have to agree with everything that everyone does or everyone thinks or their opinions, but that doesn't mean we don't try to treat everyone with respect. So look, people are going to hate. This is kind of protocol, right? When you take over a company, when there's new management, there's going to be cleaning house. There always is, almost always is. And it's not even, I don't even like to say trimming of fat, but there's going to be a new leadership in place. And for that to happen, there's going to have to be turnover. If the old ideology in the company wasn't working, then that's why the new management wants to come in and shift it. So I already think the Tesla engineers are in place in Twitter headquarters. So who knows where that's going to go. But remember, Elon owns this privately at this point. So, what he does is his private corporation.
That is, I still think that point gets lost. This ain't a public company anymore. A private company, boy, do you have a lot more freedom as a private company.
I was going to say that, obviously you feel bad for those people, especially like in the Bay Area, expensive the cost of living is. That's a, a tough change. But if you look at all the big tech companies in the same area, they're all laying off tons of people. So it's kind of consistent. This may be more directly involved related to the acquisition, but even without the acquisition, they probably would have to do layoffs because of the economy. So it's kind of in line with the rest of the tech. And, ultimately you have to make the company profitable. I mean, ultimately, if it's not profitable, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have the shock to the system because obviously a lot of things need to change at Twitter, and you can't do that doing things the same way that they've been done. And so, one of the things that you can observe right away is there's going to be a lot of layoffs. And if you're doing a lot of layoffs, there's going to be some good people that get let go in the middle of a lot of layoffs. There might be some fat too. And so, you can't necessarily make a value judgment on whether or not these were good engineers. Like this is just something, as Yashu mentioned, that needs to happen right now. And it's really difficult to have to do that as someone who's had to fire people before. That's not a fun process. But it sometimes needs to be done. And then as they make this transition, we'll see, what comes out. What are they able to do with this as they turn the company around?
Yeah. Good.
I was just say it's really difficult to make sense of that too as a person being laid off. Like why?
Yeah.
Your life is stable and you don't realize that the world has changed. And I think, this is something that the market has realized is that the world has massively changed over the last 6 months to a year. And there have been a lot of people who have been insulated from the fact that that change has already occurred. And so they don't realize that this change was coming for them and it was unavoidable. And like you said, this is going to be something that goes across companies, Google, Facebook, Microsoft. There's just a lot more layoffs that are coming, and that is just a structural fact that has been brought about by the way that the world has already changed. And so, it's unfortunate for the people who are going to be on the layoff end of that. But yeah, that change has already occurred. And if you're working at one of those companies, it's good to start thinking about and preparing for how will I make changes and modifications if I'm on the receiving end of a layoff that may or may not have anything to do with my skill and my performance and my value. So you need to think about budget, you need to think about expenses, and then you need to think about being able to market yourself.
True. It's one of the roughest things to go through for sure as a person. But we lost Yashu. Yashu's like, I'm out of here, guys. Maybe he pressed the wrong button. Anyway, it's probably a good time to stop anyway. If Yashu comes back, we'll let him back in here in the next couple minutes or two, but he probably had to jump off. He had something going on. Thank you all so much for joining us. Oh, no, he's back. I think he hit the wrong button. What happened, dude? You just sick of us already?
I was about to unmute myself. I pressed leave studio. Sorry.
Okay.
From one, by the way, that says from Ed Ludlow on Twitter saying that that it might be a hoax.
We'll
So
find out.
we may have just contributed to the fake media here narrative, which is pretty ironic considering what we were talking about in the beginning of the stream with the new media. So yeah, we don't know.
Look at that. So let's see what this says here. Let's pull it up. What a time to be alive. Update. Hearing from sources that inside Twitter, staff believe the individuals who walked out and identified as Twitter employees are enacting a hoax, and in fact were not laid off. Have not responded to requests Twitter and Twitter San Francisco for comments or return calls. Elon?
What?
Boy, what a time we live in right now.
Just like one question, like why? What's the like
attention?
Yeah, or I guess if they're
You
like
know?
if they're actors, yeah, maybe, but it's not LA.
Yeah.
Come on, it's like SF.
Or they just really when somebody, it's kind of crazy when you don't like somebody, you do some weird stuff. And that's the one thing, like now that I'm like in the public eye, quote unquote, a little bit more, I like, when you get that hate, you ask yourself like, why do you invest so much time on this, bro? Like, I'm sorry that I make you feel the way that you feel, but like, why me? You know, like, why are you going through such lengths? So like that opened my mind up to a lot of the psychology of like when somebody doesn't like somebody, that's all they think about is like, hey, like this person, I just don't like them so much. They don't have positivity in their life to sort of offset that. It becomes an obsession of sorts, you know? So, and I'm not saying it's a hoax or not. Who knows? We'll find out, I'm sure, very soon here, because this thing's going to be, it's probably already, every single news site has picked this up already. So I'm sure we'll hear from Elon what he says. But yeah, crazy time. It's crazy.
I just don't get it. This is actually crazy.
Now I hope they're laid off. Like, this is now my psychology is like, I hope they're laid off. Like, this is like a lose-lose situation. This sucks. You know?
So someone saying pulling out a framed photo of Michelle Obama was kind of a hint. Well, I think it was her book, right? I don't know. Maybe it was like a tactical book. Hey, we talked about advertising and like the unique ways you can advertise today. Talk about unique ways you could advertise a book. I don't know.
Yeah, true. Exactly.
That's pretty funny.
Bingo.
Yeah, because most people
Obama
don't
money.
Most people don't like to be publicly humiliated. And they'll volunteer for that.
That's true. Yeah. Like, why would they
That's
stop?
true.
Yeah. I mean, you think like
Exactly
Bear
right.
Stearns, like, you know, when there was those interviews of them getting fired, like they were trying to run away from the cameras, right? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. All right, folks, we're 2 hours in. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Yashu, let's give you some plugs. What do you got to plug today?
I got nothing to
Come on,
plug.
bro.
I'm going live at 12 p.m. Pacific.
You came in on this podcast and you dropped a ton of knowledge. You're not going to freaking plug your channel? Get out of here. Hit that bid right here. Boom. I'm going to do it for him. Hit that bid. Go subscribe to this man.
Thank you.
He does such good work.
Going live at 12 in about 15 minutes here. I'm going to try to take a little nap. I woke up way too early this morning before my stream.
Okay.
So hope I can get a nap in. But I appreciate everyone tuning in the chat. Like, chat was amazing today with all the ideas and Hans and Mr. Anonymous himself with all the ideas. Like, this is a great discussion. Yes,
absolutely. CP, thank you so much for $2 super chat. You're a good person, Farza. Thank you. You're a good person, CP. Thank you. Everybody's a good person. It's a good person circle. Hans, Web3Lon, right? On Twitter. Can we find you anywhere else? Or is that
That's the main place.
Okay. And then I'm going to guess Anonymous wants to stay anonymous for today. Is that right? Elon?
You could find Borghand in California.
Whoa!
In California.
All right. Look at that. Face reveal. Somebody make a short out of that. Oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody. Happy Friday. Hope you have a great weekend. In about an hour, right? Yashu, you're going live for Market Power Hour Friday. Bringing that juju. Definitely go check out my man, Yashu. And Hans and Robert, thank you all so much for jumping on. And then before we leave, you know, I have to get used to doing these plugs now because I did freaking start a merch freaking thing. If you're interested in supporting the channel, I have merch. Here's what the merch looks like. farzadmisbahi.com/merch. You can find it in the description. And I just released 3 new shirts today. I released a March of Nines shirt. So it's the March of Nines. I got some inspiration from Mrs. Scott on Twitter. And then I also have, so the sort of robot design for the robots are coming, but it's a glitch version. It's glitched because it's AI, and AI sometimes glitches. Deep. Crazy. Anyway, thank you all so much.
I think we're going to need a Pharaohzod shirt now.
I think we do. I'm going to go downstairs and take a selfie right now. Exclusive only on the secret merch store for Patreon supporters and YouTube supporters. Legitimately, it exists. If you go right here, there's a little link at the top. It says secret store. You click on it. You can only get the password if you're a member. Wow. Such great marketing, Farzad. You should do ads on Twitter. Thank you.
Is the password like Yashu sucks or something? Like Blueberry?
That might be the second one. Yeah. The first one is definitely a very juvenile joke for sure. And if somebody figures her out, you deserve to get the merch that's in there. So anyway, thank you all very much. Yash, I'll let you go take a nap. Hans, Richard, thank you so much. I think I called you Robert earlier. I meant to say Richard. Sorry, dude.
Close enough. It starts with an R.
Close enough. Starts with an R. Yeah. People get my name wrong all the time, although you haven't. So I feel bad for calling you Robert. But anyway, thank you all very much. Have a great weekend. Mwah. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
And broadcast. Here we go.